Well, AP World History, here we are again on the video machine. All right, so we had just wrapped up section 5 of 10 for Unit 5 in class, and so I am going to be taking us through, well, at the very least, section 6. All right, and so you've got the title there. This is all going to be about how different governments basically take on the changes that are going to be brought about because of industrialization, okay, triggered by the Industrial Revolution, all that sort of thing, because this is definitely going to create challenges. Some of them are going to be economic challenges as economies change from being largely agrarian, agriculturally based, to now industrial, more modernized, factory based. It's going to create cultural issues as you see one region after another shift from being largely rural to more urbanized. You're going to see political issues that come out of this as countries are eventually going to start scrambling to find those parts of the world that have the natural resources they need for continuing their industrialization, those kinds of factors. So that's kind of where we go with this section. There we go. Let's go. Let's go. All right, so A is pretty much just, well, as I just kind of, you're going to have, because you're going to have a little bit of everything that's going to be going on. You're going to have some countries that are going to just, absolutely completely embrace industrialization. They're going to see this as the key to the future, and and understanding just the power that is going to come potentially by modernizing and industrializing. But you're also going to have countries that are going to be really fearful about the change that's taking place because of this, and especially the rapid change. Okay. We can kind of compare it to, the here and now that you and I are living in, where we are dealing with such rapid change of pace when it comes to digital technologies. It wasn't that long ago that we were just getting used to, computers and, and the internet. And now, we're dealing with all of the good and potential bad coming from artificial intelligence. And it's come very, very quickly. And so, again, there's some people that's opportunity, and then some people that is abject fear, okay? Or some people like my mother who probably should be fearing it, but instead find some weird place in the middle. Anyhow, and so that's kind of what countries are doing, and kind of what B is kind of referring to. Because for some of the regions that we'll take a look at here, there is a fear that it's going to change basically the fabric of a nation. It's going to change the culture. It's going to change traditions, and and for people in control, people in charge, then the question arises: is that going to change my power? Is that going to mean it's going to change, my status as, ruling class or whatever it may be? And so, it's kind of like this whole domino effect that begins with the Industrial Revolution and spread around. All right. So let's look at case in point number 1. We'll go back to our good old friends in the Ottoman Empire. Which always we're gonna be so sad after Unit 7 when we don't have the Ottoman Empire to talk about, and just where it's at in its dying process. I don't know what we're gonna take. We'll find something, but it seems like we've been talking about this almost most of the year. Well, hey. More decline coming, more acceleration coming because of the Industrial Revolution, right? Just when you think things can't get a whole lot worse in the Ottoman Empire, now the Industrial Revolution is going to add fuel to the fire, because for the most part, the Ottoman Empire is going to kind of reject, okay, going to step away, not really want to involve itself, invest in industrialization, having some fears about how that's going to change the structure of what's left of their empire, and the people's relationship to the leaders, and the traditional economy that they rule. But we got to remember that even though the Ottoman Empire is in decline and shrinking, it's still relatively a large size, and so one of the parts that still is part of the Ottoman Empire is Egypt. okay, kind of northern African country, but is still nominally part of the Ottoman Empire. Most of these kind of the different regions usually had their own specific leaders that kind of all answered to the Sultan, and Muhammad Ali was the leader who oversaw the Ottoman Empire's region of Egypt. Okay, and no, not that. For those of you that know your boxing history, know that Cassius Clay standing there later on converted to Islam and took the name Muhammad Ali. We're not talking about that Muhammad Ali, all right? No, not the what some people consider to be the greatest heavyweight boxer in boxing history. This is the Muhammad Ali we're talking about. Okay, those are pretty awesome pants. Bring those things back. Anyhow, so 1801, he decides, independent of Istanbul and the Sultan, that he's going to start industrializing Egypt, and he does. He goes to work with that and begins to focus on all kinds of different areas, shipbuilding. The textile industry. Cotton is also a big product of Egypt. Matter of fact, to this very day, Egyptian cotton is still considered one of the finest cottons you can get your hands on. And he is investing and building an industrial infrastructure in Egypt, taking this on, and in effect saying, Istanbul, you do you, but we see opportunity down here to make Egypt stronger, a stronger part of the empire, and so we're going for it. And sure enough, eventually, when the Ottoman Empire breaks up, Egypt will be one of the stronger, former parts that, to this day, still considered to be one of the more powerful countries in the northern African region. And so, do we say that gets completely started here? Well, I don't know. Some people trace it all the way back to the pharaohs and all that sort of thing, but definitely some connections. All right. From there, we'll jump it over to China and how it's going to be dragged in, so to speak, into the industrial age. Really, I mean, where we have China in 1839 is still living in their isolationist bubble, trying to pretend the rest of the world isn't happening. But industrialization, in a way, will come a knocking. Nothing that they're going to take on themselves, more like the impacts of industrialization, especially military industrialization. What we have going on there, which comes to be known as the Opium Wars, all right, and the two of them that are fought there in the 2 years that you have listed there, are going to be a couple of wars that are fought between Britain and China, all right? And it works something like this. Follow along, okay? In Britain's rapidly growing colony of India, again, British East India influence, and then eventually switching over to the Raj, direct British control and creation of India as a colony. The British were not there for very long before they realized that there was kind of an underground economy that existed in India, and a lot of it revolved around the poppy seed that was grown in parts of, particularly in northern India. From poppy seed, a narcotic drug called opium was produced. And opium, and those poppy seeds, I mean, that's connected to all kinds of, heroin, and, we're talking about some pretty hardcore drugs. But opium was the drug of choice at the time. And the British, not too long after establishing themselves in India, realized that there's money to be made here. Now, by no means are they going to start, importing opium back to Britain, because they don't want to see a bunch of their people, get strung out on this highly addictive drug, and all the social and economic consequences that are going to come from that. But as they look to the east and north, they see that, wait a minute, there's China, and they've got a large population, and bet you a lot of them would like opium. And the British start to use pretty much kind of like a black market system to start moving opium into China. And sure enough, Chinese people, particularly Chinese men, begin getting hooked on this stuff, and requiring, as once they're addicted, then you need more. And so this pipeline being helped along by the British themselves from India to China. All right. I mean, in effect, I mean, we can more or less describe the British at this little part of history as operating one of the largest drug cartels in world history. I mean, if you want to think of it that way. The Chinese government doesn't take them long to figure out what's going on, and they take not too surprisingly a position with Britain to cut off this trade, and telling Britain to back off and stop with their efforts to get opium into the country. The British respond with, it's a trade good and there's demand in your country. And, good capitalists that we are, we're going to supply the demand. And the British pretty much just ignore the requests of the Chinese government. In the end, it boils over into a brief little war between China and Britain. Okay, in large part because of China's refusal to really involve itself in the Industrial Revolution. They're going to stand no chance against the British. I mean, the Chinese, vast country that they are, easily could have, outnumbered and overwhelmed the British in a war like this. But because the British have the advantage of modern technology that the Chinese don't have, it ends up being a very short and single-sided kind of a war. With the British winning and being able to exert influence now, into the Chinese government, pretty much dictating to China, now you will let us trade and import this opium into your country. It will boil over again in 1860 into a second war over the same issue. The Chinese trying to reassert, their own sovereignty and control, and once again, no, it's not going to work. Consequently, on this, you could also argue that because of losing these wars, this also creates some issues. This also creates some issues in China being able to industrialize. Because it, in effect, it holds China back. Not only the economic and social ills created by widespread opium addiction, and I don't want you thinking like everyone in the country is all strung out, but enough of an impact, and then just the impacts of fighting and losing two wars against the British also contributes toward what I've got there: very limited industrialization, kind of keeping China, now this, think about it, going back to Unit 1, I mean, they were the leaders. They were, so far and away ahead of, so many other regions of the known world, and now they are tumbling backwards and they are falling behind. Okay. All right. From there, we'll jump back to Japan. I'll make this one quick because really this is kind of looping back to the last time we talked about Japan. Not much has changed. We talked about Japan and them being opened up by the United States. The picture you see there on the right side, dead center there, is Commodore Matthew Perry of the U.S. Navy. No, not Matthew Perry that was in the Friends series. Who tragically passed away here in a year or two ago. No, that's Matthew Perry, the commander of the American fleet that sailed into Tokyo Bay, and kind of gently, I don't know if that's the word, but didn't have to use violence, but kind of dragged Japan back into the modern world by establishing trade between Japan and the United States. And as you'll recall, that triggered Japan into wanting to modernize. Part of that process of them wanting to modernize was needing to take care of one last little item of business that still existed. If you go back to the unifiers that we learned about a couple units ago, and the beginnings of the rise of a single whole unified Japan. We had talked about the shoguns back at that time. These guys who are kind of military leaders, and that the unifiers, the leaders of unified Japan had to play kind of a balancing act with the shoguns. They had to kind of share a little bit of power with them. And they had an emperor in Japan, but this was a person who had very, very, very little power. Okay, because most of it did go the direction of the shoguns. The Meiji Restoration is basically, I give you the year 1868 there, and I'm sure it could be argued it kind of begins before and kind of continues a little bit after. But the Restoration was the effort to kind of, first of all, break the power of the shoguns for forever, and to basically restore the power of the emperor over the country. Um, don't Yeah, I say that and I say that, but with limits, because Japan is always going to have this interesting relationship with their emperors. They're always going to have something of a figurehead element to them, and then you're going to actually have the functioning government of Japan that kind of runs the show day to day. But this is trying to kind of reestablish that Japan is going to move in a more modern fashion. It's going to embrace industrialization. Sometimes the shoguns were a little bit more stuck in the old traditions of Japan and were resistant to the change that industrialization is going to bring. After the Meiji Restoration, boom, that is all cleared out of the way. And the shogun's power is broken, and that paves the way to a modern Japan that will move on into the 20th century, and eventually, again, kind of set the stage for what will eventually be a crash course collision with the United States and the West in the middle of the 20th century. But that is a story for another day, where we'll finish here off with Japan. Is just with, again, we talked about this before, so just kind of looping back, is that once Japan makes that commitment to modernizing, they devote much of their energy to doing just like it says there, studying the United States, sending students here to the United States to gain an education in things like civil engineering and in industry and that kind of thing, engineering and then going back, taking their knowledge back home with them. Others go to Europe to learn and to see how those empires have established themselves and what makes them successful. They learn and they bring all that knowledge back to Japan. Okay, and that is going to allow them to just continue their process of industrialization and modernization. That will also lead to the rise of what comes to be known as the zaibatsus. Okay, and they are pretty much kind of like your captains of industry in Japan. They're going to be those who encourage private investment, kind of like we learned about in joint stocks. You'll see a little bit of that going on, where they look for wealthier people in Japan to invest in these rising industries that are now producing everything from textiles to military, defensive weapons and equipment, that sort of thing. And the Zaibatsus, one of the examples I give you there is the Toyota Loom Works, and they were a textiles company. That term Toyota later on will be changed. They'll drop the D and they'll drop in and take place. Whoops, sorry, got a dog. All right, sorry, that was quite the revolt. Okay, but it's all under control now. All right. Anyhow, as I was saying, drop the D, replace it with a T. Toyota. Later on, they'll make vehicles. I believe they still do. Anyhow, there you go. That's the rise of Japan. Okay, and that's section 6. Hey, look at the time. Yeah, we're going for section 7. Do you think I was really going to say, okay, that'll be enough? Silly kids. Okay, here we go. So here, this part here, we're going to focus in on some of the new, some of the economic developments and kind of new creations coming about as all results and consequences of the Industrial Revolution. All right, and let me see how close I can get through most of this. First of all, the idea of a corporation. All right, that is going to be something that is new. These are large businesses that are completely owned, when you get right down to it, by stockholders. Okay, that's how they are formed, is by people investing, buying stock. They'll usually have a chair of people who run it, and they may have a person overall who is seen as the chief economic officer, the CEO. But ultimately, they work for shareholders. And that's where they get their economic power to be able to build and to expand, that kind of thing. And so corporations, that is a new concept that comes out of the Industrial Revolution. It's kind of following the evolution of the stock joint company, now going supersize. Okay. All right. Monopolies. We've talked about this before, and this is where we see these businesses and corporations who become very aggressive about eliminating all competition. Okay, competitors, what they try to do is just completely basically undersell them. They expand to a point where they can sell their product at a price that is far less than their competitors, and their competitors can't keep up. If they try to drop their prices, they can't make enough profit to stay in business. Usually, what the more successful monopolies, they're successful because they are big. Krupp Steel, out of Germany, where we talked about, would be an example. U.S. Standard Oil. Standard Oil here in the United States would create a very early monopoly in the oil industry. Here, the Industrial Revolution going on over here in America. So that is another element that is something new, where they gain full control over an entire market. Okay, whether it's oil, whether it's steel. And, the bottom line is when you've got one company that controls it all, then they can set the price wherever they want. They don't have to worry. Again, we hope to have affordable prices on things that we need, whether it would be something like steel or, something a little more obtainable like gas. But we rely on, competition to keep prices under control. If there's no competition, then they can set the price wherever they want. And they can gouge their customers, because where else are you going to go? All the competitors are gone. They're all out of business because we control the market now. That's why the monopolies usually kind of get a bit of a bad name. All right. So monopolies, something else that we see come to rise in maybe a little bit more of a negative vein during the Industrial Revolution. Let's see, what do we have here? The beginning of transnational companies and corporations. Transnationals, there's a little PTSD for you AP huggers. And these are businesses that operate across national boundaries, right? That's for all of you that weren't an AP Hug last year. There you go. Now you've got the definition, all right? So they operate, different continents, different, all over the world, okay? De Beers will be a company that is out of South Africa, and then will spread globally. They mainly they sell diamonds. They still do to this day. HSBC, that is the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation, and that will be under British control, but also one that will spread. Unilever, that also starts up and spreads all over the world. So, some examples there of this. This is something that's new. This is something that has not really been seen until the Industrial Revolution. So we've got transnationals now. We have the insurance industry begin to start up during the Industrial Revolution. And this is it begins mainly by just kind of really focusing on insuring ships, making sure that, kind of the growth of banking and all those kinds of things, and being able to ensure that if anything goes wrong, that, you pay an insurance money for an insurance policy. You pay them to keep that policy up to date. And then if you befall some kind of disaster, you can collect from that insurance company. All right. Lloyd's of London is one of the very first insurance companies that opens up. And so while it starts with shipping, it'll very quickly go on into factories, banking, and that sort of thing. Okay. What else do we have? Let's see. Also kind of connecting here and here with some of this kind of ties in with economics when we look at the concept of mass culture. Hold on. Mass culture is really, it's a term, I know we focus in on culture, but it has very much an economic connection to it. And let me explain. And we are going to see this mainly taking place in Europe and the United States. So parts of the world that embrace the Industrial Revolution the tightest are going to see the rise of this mass culture concept, okay? First of all, I think we talked about already, but consumerism is going to continue to grow. And this is going to be businesses that take on a very active role and encouraging people, customers, potential customers, to buy their goods, to purchase their services. This is where we're going to see the rise of catalogs and that sort of thing, for people to be able to shop from the Sears catalog back in those days. You could buy everything from, toothpicks to a house in the Sears Roebuck catalog, and then have it shipped to you. Okay. And so you have that sort of thing. And this kind of gets into, that whole concept of capitalism. We've talked about capitalism as this idea of, wealth that we use to create more wealth. This is kind of the end result of it, and is in creating a population that craves things, that wants lots of stuff. And this is the beginning of it, is what we see here during the Industrial Revolution, and a concept that has never left us since. Probably, if nothing, it's grown even more so as it's gone through the 20th century and now into the 21st century. Consumerism is one of those after effects of the Industrial Revolution that looks like it will probably never completely go away. The concept of leisure, or I guess if I'm going to be really classy about it, leisure. Leisure. This is also a new idea, and this is something that we see begin to grow in the middle class, people who are making a fairly good living, and even in some of the working class. And it's kind of one of the first times in history that we see a lot of people embracing sports, whether they're amateur or professional, taking on like hobbies like biking and boating. It's going to be during the Industrial Revolution this really explodes. In Britain, their first professional football, soccer leagues will form up. Here in the United States, baseball, Major League Baseball will start up in the 19th century. And then these will grow going into the 20th century, and it's a kind of reflection of this new mass culture that we're creating, and also a reflection of this consumerism, because whether you're buying some of this stuff or paying to go see it performed, or competitions, all of it kind of goes around that idea that it's all costing money, and it's all money that's being infused into economy, and money makes the world go around, and all that kind of thing. Okay. And then also see the rise of marketing as part of all of this. And marketing just gets into the idea that you got all these factories producing this stuff, and you got to sell it to people. You got to tell them why this new automatic washing machine is going to be so much better than the old-fashioned method of breaking your back over an old washboard with a bar of soap, and having to hang your laundry out to dry, and instead of using one of these newfangled new clothes dryers, you have to market it. And so advertising back then, most of it still in the early days will all be in print, but it's a whole new, basically a whole new area of employment for people, that they can jump into, and learn how to be marketers and advertisers. And then as technologies pick up, as we get the radio, advertising on radio, and then yes, when it makes a big jump to movies and TV, you'll see it in there as well. Okay, all right. And let's see, can I get anything else in here? Yeah, I'll just finish up right here, okay? Entertainment, because this is going to take us to section 8. 8 of 10, folks, 8 of 10. You see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we've got some really big topics still to take on, so don't get too excited there. So entertainment ties in with what I was just talking about, really. This is going to be a period of time when you see a lot of cities that maybe have not invested in the past, but starting to invest in, public parks, that sort of thing. You're going to see the rise of what they called music halls back in the day, where these theaters, where you saw a real kind of, a lot of times, a mingling of different working classes, middle class, working class, and even upper class. They might all have their different areas that they would sit in some of these places, but then they would be entertained by, singers or little, play productions and that sort of thing. Not saying that, none of this had existed before in the past, but a lot of times many of these had been things that were mostly for, considered to be more for upper classes. Now it's beginning to shift downward to where it's becoming more, inclusive. And you are seeing involvement in a lot of these things, whether it's, again, leisure or entertainment, where even the working class is beginning to have some limited involvement in all that. All right. Okay, when we pick it up next time with Section 8, we're going to start to look at all the different reactions to the Industrial Revolution and the economy that it's creating. We get to learn about, I don't know, communism and communism versus capitalism and all kinds of stuff. Pushback basically against the way that the world is forming. All right. Yeah, that'll do it for now. And guess we'll jump back on it. So, fingers crossed when we're all back together in class. Take care. See you soon.